Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to ASMR. ASMR showcases spine-chilling stories from Reddit, from the paranormal to real-life spooky encounters, and of course, all will be narrated in a soothing ASMR whisper. So let's find a quiet spot, relax, and dive into the world of whispers and chills with these scary stories from Reddit. Please don't forget to leave a like on today's video and subscribe for your regular dose of creepy calm. When I was in college, I got involved with a paranormal researching group through a friend of mine. We'll call him M. M knew I had a general interest in the occult, something that would flourish as my time in Georgia went on, and had decided that I was a sensitive, someone who could feel spirits. I don't know if I could or not, but he was insistent enough for the both of us, so I went along with it. M was, of course, our occult expert. At the time, I thought M knew a lot of things and had some kind of otherworldly knowledge about the avenues of occult workings, but he ultimately turned out to be a good grifter. He curated this mystique about him that was alluring to a certain type of woman, and it helped him bounce from bed to bed in the 3 or 4 years I knew him. We were joined in our ghost hunting by a woman named Eva, who still is doing ghost hunting in the North Georgia area as far as I knew. She had a lot of equipment for ghost hunting, things she had picked up from previously failed groups, and was our resident tech head. I'm pretty sure she and M were together, though maybe not officially, and we stayed in touch after the group broke up. Our fourth was a guy named Simon, who kind of reminded me of Dib from The Invaders Inn, though I'm not sure he was doing it on purpose. He fancied himself a cryptozoologist, and was also a wealth of knowledge when it came to conspiracy theories. He believed everything from alien abduction to the FBI assassinating JFK, and you couldn't convince him that any of it was anything but gospel. He was friends with M too, and it sort of made M our de facto leader. We rode around in his mum's white minivan, Mystery Inc. style, and helped other people who were experiencing strange activity. We did this for about 6 months before Eva and M began to argue, and Simon graduated and moved to Pennsylvania. But we had some times in those 6 months. Most of it was curiosity work, standing in cemeteries and taking pictures to get spirit orbs, taking recordings to hear sounds, and the usual kind of things ghost hunters do. A few others stand out. I might tell you about a few of them, but the one I want to talk about is the case I remember as the smokehouse. The smokehouse was unique because it was one of the few cases we had that made me think that what happened might have been our fault. The family that lived there was called the Fosters, Mary and Kevin, not their real names but close enough. They were recommended to us by a professor at the college, a friend of theirs. They had recently noticed a strange smell in the house that no one could explain. They had been to electricians, home inspectors, and contractors, and they had all kinds of inspections and offers and such, but no real answers. They had come to the professor, and he had come to us. Their son died a year ago, and they are afraid his spirit might be haunting the place. I don't know why they have come to this conclusion, but they want someone to take a look. We pulled up to their house at about 6:30, just as the sun was getting low. M said it would be more mysterious if we arrived at sunset, which might cast us in shadow, so they looked more legitimate. M always seemed more interested in appearance than actually doing anything. The couple was older, maybe late 50s or early 60s, and they showed us in with smiles and questions about drinks or food. Some of us ate, some of us drank, and we all listened to what they had to say. We've lived here for 40 years, bought it when we were newlyweds. Andrew, our son, was born here. Didn't quite make it to the hospital, so the wife had him right here in the kitchen. He lived here until he was 19, when he decided he wanted to be a firefighter. We were proud, but not very hopeful. Andrew had tried to get into the army and was refused, tried to get into the police academy the year before, but couldn't make it. And now it was firefighter school. We figured this would make 3, but it My son was a firefighter for nearly a decade until he died in a fire trying to save a family from a collapsing building. They brought us in his fire coat and his helmet, and we brought it home and made a little remembrance wall. It's in my wife's sewing room now, along with a picture of him, and we find it a great comfort. A couple of months after he died, the smell began. It's a smoky smell. I'm sure you've smelled it since you came in. The others have smelled it too, but none of them can find it or make it stop. We've tried to get rid of it through the normal means, so now we attempted to get rid of it through less conventional means. We'll pay you if you can figure out why it's doing this. So we set to work. Eva set up some cameras and microphones, Simon helping her, and Em and I set about being sensitives. Em would ask me what I felt, and I would tell him what came to mind. He would always nod, eyes closed, and then tell me what it meant, like some pocket sage. He always understood what it meant, understood with that Mandarin way of his, and I accepted it. I didn't sense much. Scuffling in the attic that turned out to be squirrels, the hum of a washing machine, a slight creak that could be nothing more than the house settling, but nothing of any substance. It was usually like that, but any little thing always meant something mystical. Em could hear phantom voices in the rattling of an old water heater, but we never really questioned him. Questioning in that community was frowned upon. If you called someone out for their BS, they were likely to call you out for yours. We were all just trying to see if we could do real magic, hoping it would be us who was the next Luke Skywalker or Harry Potter. After about 3 hours, Eva hadn't gotten any video or audio, and I hadn't felt more than the hum of the washing machine. We were at a loss for the smell, something all of us had admitted to smelling, but of course, Em had the answer. He went to the memorial wall and pointed to it, nodding as he wove his hands before it. There's a spirit attached to this coal. He's displeased at being deceased before his time, and what you are smelling is his spirit. I will tie a charm to it and put a circle of salt around it so that the spirit might disconnect on its own. Do I have your permission to move it? The Fosters said he did, and he took it down as he moved it to a spot on the floor. He looked at it, and then added the helmet too, before encircling the whole thing in salt. He held his hands out once this was done, speaking low before raising his voice, and speaking to whatever spirit he believed had attached itself to it. Spirit, I beseech you to move on. Your life here is no more. You must go to whatever lies beyond. Be gone from this house. You are welcome here no more. Then he spouted some pseudo-Latin at it and forked the sign of the evil eye at it. There was no pillar of fire, no unearthly laughter, and we all just stood there and watched the coat, ignoring the blackened marks on the arms. When he was satisfied, Em told them that if the smoke smell came back, they should call us immediately. If it hasn't come back in 3 days, then the coat and helmet should be fine to hang on the wall again. They thanked him, and when he slipped his hand into his pocket, I realised they've given him some money. When we climbed into the van and Em didn't comment on it, I realised he didn't mean to tell us about it. 2 days later, I got a call. It wasn't from the Fosters, it was from the police. They had Em down at the station, and they wanted the rest of us to come down too. Apparently, the Fosters were dead, and their house had been burnt to the ground. We understand that you and your friends were there the day before. Do you mind if we ask you some questions about what you were doing at the Fosters' house? I explained what it was our group did, but the officer in charge of my questioning scoffed. So you didn't do anything? Is that what you're telling us? Yes, sir. I've left nothing in the house, and when we got in our van, the Fosters were very much alive. He nodded, taking a picture out and putting it on the table. Does this stuff look familiar? It was a little grainy, but it was clearly the remains of the coat Em had circled in salt. The charm was still attached to it, and the salt around it was undisturbed. That's their son's coat, the one who died. My friend Em put a circle of salt around it and affixed a charm to it because he believed a spirit was attached to it. Neither are flammable, and we in no way started the fire. They had a few more questions, but they ultimately had to let us go. There was no proof we had done anything, but go in and play pretend for about 4 hours, and they had to turn us loose. This is the late 80s, early 90s. I was around 6 to 7 years old. I'm at home with my sister, who is 14, 15 at the time. We grew up in a small Texas town. Everyone knows everybody. We are home alone this particular night, and my folks let my sister babysit me frequently. We always got along due to our age gap. Anyway, it's about 8 p.m. in the winter. Deserts get pretty damn cold, so it's dark, and we're in the common room since that's where the TV was. We're watching 60 Minutes or 48 Hours or hard copy. One of those 1-hour news pieces on CBS that chronicle large crimes in depth, trafficking, murders, kidnappings, and the like. Basically, a gritty Lifetime special. This one was a typical story. Guy next door that was quiet went on a rampage on his next door neighbour's house, kidnapping their younger daughter. Well, the thing about our house common room is the door leading to the backyard was a large glass door on a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows. Nothing but blackness beyond it, unless you have the backlight on. We didn't. The front door is on the other side of the room, with a small entryway. This is a solid door, so you cannot see what's beyond it, with the glass storm door on the outside of it. About 45 minutes into the show, they are talking about the ongoing manhunt for this crazy guy, and bam, 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 front door bangs like crazy. We jump up and scream like banshees. Dead silence now. The only lights on in the house are the kitchen down the hall from the common room we were in, and the light from the TV. We start thinking something on the porch. We had some planters and a rocking chair out there, had simply blown against the door. This was West Texas, crazy strong winds out the way. Well, a minute or two of silence, and us holding each other post-adrenaline overdose passes. Just when we are about to declare everything is safe, we hear the storm door on the outside of our front door close. Someone had to have opened that door to be able to bang on the front door like that. We are both frozen in the middle of the room, on the floor, where we had been watching TV. My sister crawls over to the TV and turns it off. It was an old TV, so you had to turn the metal dial to switch it off, which it does with a mildly loud thunk. Now it's just us, in a room dimly lit by the kitchen light down the hall. I don't remember how much time passed with my frozen and my sister still crouched by the now off TV, but we kept making eye contact, then looking at the front door. I remember this part vividly. I'm on my knees, sitting on my feet, and I turn around to look at the back wall of windows and glass door. We hear, and I see, the back door knob turn. It was locked on the knob, but not dead bolted. It rattles slightly, as if someone is gently trying the handle. Neither of us make a sound. We just held our breath. Then, bam, 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 bam. Loud as hell. Someone is trying to force the door open, just jerking it back and forth. The whole wall of windows is vibrating violently, and I can see with each jerk of the door how my slight reflection gets fuzzy, then clear, then fuzzy. My sister flips and screams bloody murder. I'm still frozen on the floor. She gets up and basically drags me into her bedroom and slams the door, throws her mattress and anything she can in front of the door. Thankfully, she remembered the phone, one of those ungodly heavy beige plastic long metal antenna portable phones. We still had to direct dial a sheriff there, and in her panic didn't remember the number. She just hit redial on the phone. It was one of her friends, and she tells them in broken caps that someone is trying to get into our house. I'm curled up on the floor and cannot stop shaking. We don't hear anything else until we see the headlights of my sister's friend and her parents driving up to the house. We never did find out who was at the door or why. There were no signs of anything happening, but a couple of scuff marks on the bottom of the back door that we could not remember if they were there beforehand or not. Nothing like that has happened to me or her since, but for damn sure we never forget to lock a door after that. My twin brother was the spitting image of me. Even our family couldn't tell us apart. Growing up, we had to wear colour-coded bracelets just so they could differentiate us. Harry was the best, popular, smart, talented. He was everything I wish I could be. We had a great relationship, always together, like two peas in a pod. When we were 16, I had a crush on a girl in my class named Isabel. She was the sweetest, but had no confidence secure a day with her. He told me I needed to make the first move, start small, make casual conversation in class, and eventually ask for her number. I listened to him. It worked perfectly. After a couple of weeks, Isabel and I had a date set up for coffee in the morning, but that day she confessed something to me. She had a crush on my brother. I went home devastated and miserable. Eventually, I told Harry. He apologised, but it didn't change how I felt. A few weeks later, he came home late one weekend, practically buzzing with excitement. He told me he'd gone on a date with Isabel, and it had been the most perfect night of his life. He shared all the details, oblivious to this storm brewing inside me. I forced a smile and told him I was happy for him, but deep down, I resented him for it. He knew how I felt about her, and yet he still went after her. The next morning, we had plans to go swimming in a local river. When we arrived, I noticed the currents were unusually strong. I told Harry it wasn't safe, but, overconfident as always, he just laughed. He stripped down to his swim trunks and waded in. It all happened so fast. The current pulled him under. He flailed wildly, his arms thrashing in the air. He was drowning. I could have called for help. I could have jumped in after him, but I didn't. Instead, I took my wallet and tossed it into the water. Then I picked up his wallet. When I got home, I told my parents that I'd lost Brian in the woods. The search went on for weeks. His face was all over the local news, but they never found Harry. That was 10 years ago. Now, I'm happily married to Isabel, and I have no regrets. He should have never come between me and her. The nurse knew I was terrified about my kidney stone removal. It'll be over before you know it, he murmured. Tell me about your day. I blinked rapidly, the bright lights above me blurred in and out of focus. I went to class, I whispered, trying not to panic when a mask was pressed over my face. When my vision went black, I braced myself to fall asleep. But then gloved fingers pressed down on my bare stomach. A metal clamp was inserted into the incision. I could feel it, but I wasn't supposed to, right? Revulsion crept up my throat as the ice-cold brick of the scalpel slipped into my skin. I felt the pressure of the cut, the incision slicing into me. I'm still awake, I thought dizzily, a surgeon's breath tickling my face. I can hear you. I can feel. She's awake, one of them murmured, and something in me contorted, a shiver skittering down my spine as blades began to whir. The saw came so close, screeching in my ears before moving away. I screamed, but my jaw was locked, my body paralysed. When pain erupted, I was too aware I was being sliced open, my blood seeping down my skin, my thoughts unravelling, screaming in time with the blades. The patient must be awake as a form of consent due to them being a minor, he said, over the sound of the saw cutting through me, slicing me apart. They must feel everything. We cannot proceed without their knowledge. I felt every dislodging like puzzle pieces ripped from me. They started with my stomach, carving it out, then my kidneys. You're doing great, Mary, the nurse hummed. Don't worry, almost finished. When a firm hand wrapped around me, my soul, what kept me chained to the table, his fingers curling around my heart, and ripped from my chest. My eyes flew open. I was on my knees on the floor, gasping, choking on puke. Hi, I'm Luke. A boy stood over me, wearing a blood-stained hospital gown. They'll just tell your mum there were complications and you bled out. I could barely hear him. In front of me, a girl's body lay splayed across the steel table, haloed in scarlet. The cavernous nothing that used to make her up was hollowed out. It was me. You're the 100th minor, Luke murmured. I was the 50th. For what? I watched a nurse enter a room carrying a white box. Inside, a giant, bulbous, dog-like creature took up the whole room, bleeding darkness with gnashing teeth. The nurse, keeping his distance, reached into the box snapping them up with a snarl. Luke's gaze darkened. It feeds on our mental pain of being awake, then it enjoys us physically. He gestured to the thing chained to the wall. Meet Princess. I've always been a bit skeptical of paranormal phenomena, but this encounter has stayed with me. I want to share what happened and see if anyone else has had a similar experience. So this happened when I was 16. It was around 7 or 8 p.m. and I was in my fully lit bedroom, scrolling through Instagram. I was awake and fully aware of my surroundings, when suddenly my alarm clock turned on by itself and started playing Cake by the Ocean. Random detail, I know. I remember feeling a bit uneasy at that moment, like something was off in the room, like I wasn't alone. I looked up and there, right next to my alarm clock, was what I can only describe as a humanoid entity. It wasn't solid, but rather it seemed to be made of light. The light was bending in a way that formed the shape of a person. Arms, legs, head, torso, but no fine features. It was like a distortion of light, kind of like a heat mirage. The room also seemed a little brighter than normal, almost like the entity was somehow affecting the electricity or the environment. I remember feeling terrified, but also knowing that whatever it was there, clear as day. My eyes started watering, and I couldn't speak. I ended up slowly backing out of the room, closing the door, and running upstairs to get my dad. When we went back down, it was gone. I've never experienced anything like this since. I know some might chalk it up to a vivid imagination or something psychological, but it felt real. My mum also mentioned that I had an imaginary friend when I was little, and she said a psychic once even mentioned it. That has always stuck with me, and now I'm wondering if there's any connection to what I saw years later. This story comes from one of my co-workers, Chris. He moved to Iowa about 3 years ago, and this happened not long after. I'll let him take it from here. Okay, so there was this one thing that happened to me late at night, around 11:30 p.m. or so. I don't remember. Driving this road from my work at A&W, just outside of town, and heading back to where I used to live, a smaller town. Now, I never saw much out there. It was quiet, dark, maybe a little creepy, but what country road isn't at night? Most of the time, I'm just jamming out to my radio on the 20 minutes or so from work to my house. I rarely see other cars out there. Maybe one or two, sometimes a semi, but most of the time, it's pretty lonely. If the stars are out, it's actually really beautiful, but when it's cloudy, it's still pretty dark. There are light poles, but there's only one per intersection. There's been a few times where I dealt with deer, but never got into an accident. Back in Illinois, they're just as much of a problem. But there was something else. For 3 nights in a row, I saw someone just standing at the edge of a ditch, back to the corn and facing the road, completely still. I noticed him, or whatever it was, for the first time one night between the first intersection. The first time I barely noticed as I drove past, and looking back, I don't think he ever moved, even as my bright headlights should have made him at least wince and shield his eyes. But no, he was still as a statue. My first thought was a scarecrow, like, oh, someone put him there. Never saw him there before. It was mildly creepy, just seeing someone standing in the pitch black darkness. Then, the next day when driving to work, he wasn't there. I didn't think anything of it at the moment until I saw him again in the exact same spot where he was the night before. The night was only partly cloudy same spot, same posture, still facing the road. He didn't turn, didn't move, just stood there like before. I was beginning to feel creeped out. Maybe it was a Halloween decoration, but it was August. And who puts up a scarecrow at night? I don't know. I'm not aware of some Iowa tradition where people put up their scarecrows only in the night time, but take them down in the day. I guess I forgot to describe him. He was tall, like maybe 6 foot something, maybe average build, wearing blue jeans and a flannel shirt. I figured he looked like a farmer around here or something. I didn't really see the face as I drove past the first 2 nights. Now, what I'm about to say was really, really stupid, I know. Some dumb horror movie mistake, number 1. The 3rd night, I stopped near the guy. I don't know. I was just weirdly curious, but you know what they say about the car. The night was clear, and there were no other cars on the road. I stay inside my car and roll down the window. I poked my head out, calling out to the guy like, "Hey, you alright?" Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not so much as a huff, not rustling or anything. The guy was stock still. I waved, trying to get his attention. Still nothing. The air outside was thick, humid, heavy, almost hard to breathe, and it was quiet. Not just late night quiet, but wrong quiet. No crickets, no wind, nothing. Like everything in the general area just dropped dead. The guy didn't move at all. Not so much as a twitch. Fully creeped out by now, I decided it really wasn't worth it. Maybe it really was just a scarecrow, and I, being dumb, tried talking to it. But now, I'm not so sure it was, because the second I looked down, just for a second, he was next to my car, standing right there, too close, too fast. I don't know how, and I don't care to know how. There was a ditch between the corn and the road. How did he jump over in less than 2 seconds without making a sound? Like I said, I don't care to know. I don't want to know. Obviously, I freaked out and hightailed it out of there. Tyres peeling out and no doubt leaving skid marks on the road. Not sticking around to figure out what that was. I didn't look back. I sped all the way home. I never saw it again. I still don't know what the guy's face looked like. I don't think I've ever seen anyone like that before or since. So yeah, that's my story. We're not sure if the spirit in our home is a demon or a mimic. Pretty sure a demon. But it's been wreaking havoc on our everyday lives. It's disrupting my mother-in-law's sleep. And it's been causing me to have sleep paralysis in both dreams and waking life. It will mimic me and my mother-in-law, either physically or in speech, using our voices. We've tried using salt, crosses, prayers, and even ignoring it, but it just makes it worse. It's begun stalking me in my everyday life. We're trying to move and don't want it to follow us, whatever it is. I'm a pretty heavy sleeper, so it was weird when I woke up one night. I looked at the clock. It read 2:53 a.m. Relieved that I still have some decent hours of sleep still in my clutches, I decided to shrug it off and go back to sleep. Just as I was about to close my eyes, I saw the other side of the bed empty. I remember going to sleep with my beloved wife beside me. For an instant, which felt like eternity, I longed for her to be there in my arms, just like the good old days. But then it hit me. Was it even real? Was my relationship real? I felt hollow. Honestly, a little upset at myself for convincing myself into believing in fallacy just to cure my loneliness. As I found myself shrouded in doubt, I heard a strange growl come from the powder room. The door creaked open, and I saw a shadow standing in front of me. With each passing second, the shadow limped forward, turning my hesitation into straight-up horror. It crawled into the sheets with me, and I felt its claws digging into my chest as it pulled itself As I lay there paralysed, that thing came towards my ear and whispered, "Just went for a midnight pee, baby." I had gotten into a small car crash back in 2003, which resulted me going to the emergency room in my small town. I didn't see the big fuss the ambulance was making because I felt fine, other than a small cut above my brow, sprained wrist, and a headache. It was a waste of money, if you ask me. But anyway, with the way healthcare was, I sat in the waiting room for a good 7 hours with a bunch of people waiting also. It was about 2:30 a.m. when I was rubbing my neck while watching the TV the hospital so generously provided. Some people talking while some people were sleeping, like what you'd expect in a slow-moving waiting room. Hell, even the security guard was asleep. Anyway, there I was trying to keep my eyes open because I didn't want to miss my name called. Suddenly, the front doors opened and a cool breeze rushes in, filling the entire waiting room. I looked at the two front receptionists and I can see suddenly their eyes widened. One stood up quickly and backed off from her chair as if she had seen a ghost. She had. I reared my head up on attention and turned my head towards the door, and so did a few other people. What we seen walk through the doors was something straight out of a horror movie. A man wearing an off-white button shirt and black pants, but when we really looked at this man, he had no head. "Oh my," a receptionist yelled as she ran from the desk, as a few other people screamed at the sight of this man. Everyone woke up and even the security guard stood up and ran. Everyone else gasped and screamed as I did the same because this headless man just casually walked in and stood there. The screams and panic in that small waiting room was deafening as everyone rushed the doors into the south wing. Everyone ran for those doors. He just stood there as everyone glanced at this person while making their fearful escape. More security came as everyone were panicked and screaming amongst themselves. No one could believe what they had just seen. A police officer walks into the panicked crowd and asked us what happened. Everyone at once started talking and honestly not making any sense. After a few minutes of trying to make sense of it, the officer scoffs at the idea of a headless man standing in the waiting room, but 25 to 30 people said the same thing of what they had seen. Even as the officer came back and was sceptical, thinking some kind of mass hysteria had taken place, we all knew what we saw. After an hour or so, more officers arrived, and even they couldn't believe what everyone else was saying. The receptionists and security backed up what we had seen, and it was only then the officers went into the security room to check the cameras. 20 minutes later they came out of the room, speechless, quiet, and even a few officers had turned white and very much sceptical, trying to pass it off as a prank of some sort. It turns out, after listening to the officers talking to one another, this person with no head, walks into the emergency room and you can see everyone rushing out in fear. This headless man just stands there for a good 5 minutes and walks back out. How the hell am I supposed to put that in the report? This headless man just walks in and walks back out. Seeing that was very much unbelievable, but what scares me the most, and why I don't go out at night as much, is that there is still a headless man wandering around out there, and I get anxiety of seeing him again. I hope that I don't, because I'm not even sure if, I don't know, might lose my mind more than I should. Well, that concludes today's Scary Reddit stories. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this creepy journey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Please also leave your own spooky experiences below.